So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for Watch Learning Bloom, Understanding, Analyzing, Evaluating, and Creating with VoiceThread. I am Michelle Pacansky-Brock, and you can learn more about me and learn from many of the resources that I have developed and I share openly on my blog at teachingwithoutwalls.com. I also invite you to follow me on Twitter at Brokansky. Every time you participate in a webinar here with VoiceThread, we never let you leave empty-handed. We put together a handy goodie bag for you, and this is the link to this webinar's goodie bag. Katie's going to share that link in the chat window. If she can get that out to you folks, that would be great. This goodie bag is basically going to open up a page for you with a collection of web links, including a follow-up voice thread where you can go to and ask questions after today's webinar that Vicki and I will chime in on if you have any lingering questions. You're also going to find lots of links to samples of Vicki's sample voice threads and a link to a special savings on my new book that's coming out this month, Best Practices for Teaching with Emerging Technologies, which I'm really excited to share with all of you, and much, much more. So check out the goodie bag. And today's featured innovator is Vicki Phillips. I'm going to take just a minute to introduce you all to Vicki. Vicki is General Education Coordinator and English Instructor at Rasmussen College, which is located in Ocala, Florida. Vicki has more than 25 years of college-level teaching experience. She started using technology in writing labs when she was an adjunct English and humanities instructor at Paradise Valley Community College in Arizona back in the early 1990s. Now, early on, she found that by using technology in her classes, she could encourage her students not only to do the assigned writing, but also to get them to think critically about what they were reading before they started typing their papers. As the years moved forward and technology continued to progress, she continued experimenting with recording audio files to reinforce snippets of writing rules and grammar notes. Vicki found that when her students listened to these audio snippets outside of the classroom, they retained more of what she was teaching. So she continued to seek out better ways to use technology to reach her non-traditional learners. And that's what led Vicki to VoiceThread. So today she's going to pick up where I left off and share with you how she has used and continues to use VoiceThread in a variety of ways to support the cognitive development of her diverse learners. And Vicki, that takes us right into this fabulous graphic of Bloom's taxonomy, which I'm imagining most of our participants here in the webinar as educators are familiar with. But this is the cognitive domain of Bloom's taxonomy. And it shows this kind of classification of learning that goes up through the lower order thinking skills through the higher order thinking skills. So do you want to just kind of bring us in here and start us off by explaining how this has been helpful to you in using VoiceThread?
Sure. To start off with, I had, as I said, used the audio little snippets, MP3s. But when I discovered VoiceThread and I found out that I could use the audio files but have visuals, all of a sudden I could connect in a way that that really seemed to have more impact than just the students hearing what I was saying. And it could still be short. I think that's the key. What I found was, in a long PowerPoint, students, lose interest. But in a voice thread, they're hearing you as if you're lecturing live to them, and it could be 1 a.m. in the morning. It can be 2. Some of the students get off work and they're working on a paper and they're trying to remember what it was you said in class, or they're revising papers, and so I loved it. The first one I created was on this, though, on more on the remembering, because my students would tell me that I forgot what you said about the commas. I couldn't remember what you said. And so then they would try to remember those comma rules. And I found out if I just made little tiny snippets of one skill, then they could just click on that that voice thread, and I learned about tagging because that was very important, because how are they going to locate it? If they go on voicethread.com at 1 in the morning, how would they possibly locate my thread? So I learned to tag, and it's very important. And so I learned to tag them with our class, so they could just then go in under browse and either put my name in or put our class in, and then the voice threads would pop up for that. So the first ones that I created were for really for my developmental English learners. And those were students that had been out of school a long time, or they were unsure about their writing skills. And so I created a group like that. And then as I started looking at my other classes, and I would be teaching literature, and I would think, wow, I wonder how I could make a voice thread about a poem, or this poem, or Edgar Allan Poe, and I wonder if it would work, and I wonder if they would respond more than they're responding in a discussion in class. When you say, well, how, all right, what did you guys think about the poem? And usually you'll have two students raise their hand, and the rest of them, the other 18 just sit there. And usually it's the two students who are really into literature, and they're the ones that respond every time anyway. So
Absolutely.
I found that with VoiceThread, what happens is that at first I would have it as an option. Then I started requiring my students to go on there and make a comment, a journal entry, I called it, but it was actually a comment on the thread. I found that because of the fact that it's a worldwide audience, they became more cognizant of what they were writing. They started to really look at each other's comments and be and more carefully analyze the literature. And sometimes I was so surprised by the depth and the astute comments and just the thought that they put into it. And I think it's because, again, it incorporates that social media aspect, and they want their peers to think well of them, and the worldwide audience. So that's basically, like I said, this came upon me. I didn't start out to use blooms; it just
Yes.
happened.
So let me tell you that we're already getting lots of people itching to see your voice thread. So I want to reassure the
Okay,
audience that we're going to actually, that's where we're headed right after this. We
okay,
wanted to start with a graphic of blooms.
okay,
So let's go there, because I think that
okay.
you've really kind of laid the context there
All right.
fabulously. And I also just want to point out that you're talking about sharing the voice threads publicly. If there's any of you out there who are thinking about, or maybe having some concerns about that, all the voice threads that you create actually start out completely private, and so you have to make the conscious choice to make them public. And there's a range of
Right.
different share settings you can choose from. So if you prefer to keep your voice threads completely secure, it's very simple. If you have an upgraded account, you can't do it with a free account, but if you have an upgraded account, um, what you can do is just set up a group for your students, have your students join that group, and then share the voice threads with that group. And they are the only ones who are going to see them and have access to each other's comments. So that's another way to share in a more private manner. And then the other thing I wanted to share, these were the some of the verbs that we were going to show to just kind of
Oh,
align with
yeah.
blooms, but I think that we've already kind of made that point.
Yeah.
A lot of times we don't think about the affective domain. I mean, Bloom's actually has three domains. It has the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor domain. And what I've been reflecting on a lot is how much VoiceThread really supports the affective domain. And I can hear it a lot in what Vicky's already shared with us, but I think we should keep that in mind as she goes out and shares her VoiceThreads with us. The cognitive domain refers back to knowing, and the affective domain refers back to feeling. So when we think about building community with our students, and trying to get them to engage on some level of feeling and emotion with the content, which is really what makes it meaningful to them as learners, the affective domain is really critical. And I think that perhaps it's that visual element, perhaps it's the fact that you can use your voice and bring in video in the voice thread that really contributes to that. But that's a really, for me, that's a huge part of why I like to use VoiceThread, particularly in teaching online. So with that said, Vicki, I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and
Okay.
let us get to the really exciting stuff here. So let me
Okay.
let me change the presenter over to you. Hold on one second here.
All right. So these first ones, these are the ones that, if you'll see the yellow right here, it says Developmental English Voice Threads, and it shows 8 of the ones that I did. But as you can see, it just says like dependent clause help, 7 rules for writing, quotation marks, comma rules, and these are 3 comma rules. I broke it down to only 3. A topic sentence, what is that? How to write a simple 3-part thesis statement for a 5-paragraph essay. So I try to be very specific with the skill. And I also try to use, if you'll notice, colorful visuals. I found out some of these earlier ones that I made that weren't that colorful, but I've tried to get, like, you can tell the latter ones, like the dependent clause, I try to find a photo that kind of illustrated what a dependent clause was, how it was hanging out there, and it needed to have a comma. So, so that's basically those voice threads, and I'll just open one up real quick, and I'm going to mute myself, but at least you can see, you know, how I put questions over there, and I asked them, you know, and I explain what it is, and then I explain more, and then I give them some samples to follow. And I actually, on this one, there's some of my students commenting, but I actually did use the pencil. So I would, on this one, when it was playing, I would use the pen and circle what I was talking about and circle. And then I gave them some fill in the blanks so they could actually practice on their own. So you can do that
Can
with
you show us
VoiceThread.
part of that? Can you show us part of that, Vicki? Is that quick? Is that easy? I don't want to derail you, but that might be a nice feature for folks to see.
Let me see if it's gonna. I think I'd have to play my voice though. All right, on
That's
this slide,
okay.
we're going to look
You
at
can
the
listen to a little bit of your voice.
possibilities. First, we see that we start with the there you go. Clause, while I studied. Notice we also put a comma after our phrase, and then we link it with the independent clause. I also ate a sandwich. We can say on the next one, when I studied. Again, that's our dependent clause. We have our comma. When I studied what? Well, we could say I took notes, I fell asleep, I felt good about the test, I ate a sandwich. As you can see, there are many things that you could link that to, many other ideas that would change the meaning of the sentence. But what we're trying to do here is practice using dependent clauses in our writing, because students typically use them quite a bit. All of us do. And we want to use them correctly. So you can practice through the rest of this list. And then on the next slide, I have some dependent clauses, and there are some blanks for you to fill in. Now, you may either use the comment button and type in your correct sentences, or you can also correct them on a piece of paper if you like. And good luck with your writing. I hope this has helped you, and I look forward to seeing your writing in class. Okay, so then this is a sample of a student comment. So one of my students said, I had no clue what a dependent clause was until watching this. I like how you used an illustration with a palm tree to show how a dependent clause works in a sentence. Thanks for the insight. And this student actually wrote a dependent clause, said, since I started going to Rasmussen, my life has changed profoundly. Good example of dependent clause and using a comma. so that's the kind of thing they engage, and I think that is, you know, that's what really made me so excited about using these, is to see the students engage in the class and engage with what you're creating for them. And
so Vicki, can I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. Just want to ask a couple of questions here. So those, I think that what you just showed us is great, because it really illustrates exactly what you're referring to about reinforcing those skills outside of the classroom. if I'm understanding correctly, so those aren't required, right? Those are just
Oh, no, no,
supplemental there
no.
for the,
None of these on the, no, on the developmental English, those are not required comments. They
okay.
don't ever have to comment on there.
And the other question, and this is something that someone has sent in through the questions block, is do you start off by creating PowerPoint slides? Is that how you develop your voice thread?
Yes, yes, and I save them as a PDF.
Hmm. Great. Yeah,
Yes.
saving as a PDF first is a really good practice. It avoids some formatting glitches that can occur if you go straight from PowerPoint to VoiceThread.
Yes, and I can show you what, yes, I mean, there, a couple of mine, I mean, I noticed the difference because I didn't, in the beginning, I didn't know that, and I didn't understand why I was having trouble formatting issues. And then I went on a tutorial and found out. Okay, so is it okay if I move on to the next ones,
Oh yeah,
Michelle?
this is
Okay,
your
all right,
place. Go for it.
okay, all right. Well, so basically, those were the ones when they're just remembering, understanding, they're trying to apply, they're just developing writers. Then they move into the English composition classes, and so some of these are, you'll see repeats because I found that yes, I taught that in developmental English, but maybe they didn't have me for developmental English. So then, you know, I made sure that in their, we have online grade books, and even if I have a residential class, I still have the ability to upload resources in there. So I always upload my voice threads inside that grade book as a resource. That way, if we're working on essays and I talk about the thesis statement, I can say, and by the way, in your lesson one for this week, I uploaded the three-part thesis statement for you to review after class. You know, even though I go over this very much in the English comp, but sometimes, you know, someone might be absent or they just didn't get it. They were having a bad day. They were sick. You know, they forgot what I said. So that's what I have that. And then before they turn in their essay, I ask them to, as they're actually before they write the essay, I ask them to please read this. It's 7 rules for good writing. And I made this because I was saying the same thing over and over on every essay, you know, never start with a conjunction, you know, in your sentence and things like that, and talking about dependent clauses. And so I decided, why don't you just make a voice thread? I actually created this one out of out of frustration, and I thought, you know, just create it, and it really seemed to work. And they'll read it and they'll say, oh, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to do that. And again, these aren't ones that they have to comment on. Uh, so it's really nice when I see comments on these, and I don't know if, yeah, so I don't want to play that one, but I do want to kind of. Rule number 1, do not begin any sentence with a conjunction. Okay, ever. And, but when some of this, oh, this is the copy, so you don't have their comments. I apologize for that. I didn't realize that I had put the copy on here, but they had some really nice comments on that one, and it was just really, it was really wonderful to see. And they would say, and sometimes there were funny comments, you know, I didn't know we weren't supposed to do this, and in writing our research papers, because in this class they actually have to write a research paper at the end. So again, they're applying what they're learning. They have to do comparison contrast. So I created a comparison contrast voice thread because as we're moving up the levels of Bloom's, and as I was thinking about it, this is one type of essay that they have to do throughout their learning here, and many of them are enrolled in a bachelor's program, and in many classes they ask them to compare and contrast. So not only will they have that in my class, but they're having it in multiple classes. So I wanted to create something that would just be easy, and they could go to it as a good resource. They could learn, you know, whether it's a block or point by point, and so I created that for them. And another thing I've learned is I use VoiceThread as a little tool. This I created for them simply to show how to create an outline in Microsoft Word without ever having to type and do the Roman numerals yourself. You just play around with the toolbar. So I showed them that, and I actually used the pencil tool. We're going to learn to outline. I'll let you see this for Microsoft Word with 3 quick steps today. First, I want you to go and open up Word, and when you open up, you're going to look under View, and you're going to see Multi-Level List, and that's what you want to click on. And you will see Heading 1 and Heading 2 over here, but right now we're just going to open up the multi-level list, and when it opens up, it will look like this page. All right, so the multi-level list opened up. This is it right here. This is the one you want to go to. You want to click on that, and when you click on that, it's going to open up an outline format, and you don't even have to type the Roman numerals and the capital letters and all of your 1s and 2s and little a's and b's, those things. It will actually put those in for you and in the correct order. And I'll show you, there's a wonderful trick where you just simply type in your topics and let it create the formatting for you. So you want to look up here. Always pay attention to up here, because this is actually the area we are going to be working in, is up here.
So in this way, you're really using Voicethread as like a screencasting tool.
Yeah, so I've found that you can use it like that as well. So you can put little tips for your students. I use it all the way through. You know, as I move into the literature courses and into my humanities, this is where I really saw the what you were talking about, Michelle, the affective learning. I mean, not only are they critiquing or thinking about the literature or theater or whatever I'm having them look at. What they're doing, though, I actually saw students that were very reticent in class start to really just blossom, and sometimes it would be such a surprise, and some of the things that they would elect to share on a Voicethread would be things that they had never ever mentioned in class. So if we could, I just want to showcase, like this one was just a simple single slide that I had of Epidaurus in Greece, and I put this up, and all I asked them was, what does theater mean to you? This Voicethread took me probably literally 5 minutes to make, and it had the most surprising responses. You know, because it was just a theater. Can you think of any theaters that you enjoy attending? And what was your first theatrical experience like? And this is what was so surprising. Look at you can see the depth of what students would share. That one question, what they chose, and that this was in a literature course where we were studying poetry, drama, poetry, short fiction, and then drama. So this was our introduction to the drama section. And I just wanted to, I want to go to this young man who decided to do a voice comment.
Vicky and my fellow classmates, theater means to me the expression or acting out a piece of material that can be of entertainment or personal/fictional art. The theater that I enjoyed attending was Red Rocks Park and Amphitheater out in Morrison, Colorado. Even though I was at this theater to help volunteer, it was a great experience to see the background of the city, Denver, from the top. The theater had a cool feature. The sounds reflected off the rocks, so the use of sound equipment wasn't really necessary. When I think of a theater, I always thought about a movie theater in a stadium type structure with high level.
So that was just an example. Now, I had no idea until he posted that he'd ever been to Colorado or attended Red Rocks. And then this comment was from a young man who had never really volunteered, had to be kind of coaxed to join in on discussions.
What theater means to me, I believe theater is a way that originally started using oral stories passed down from generation to generation to tell stories of politics or situations that were unjust or that needed to be changed in society. Could have been about love, about passion, about a number of things. And then I believe as time went on, it eventually grew into a way that people could get together and they could feel safe about expressing ideas without worrying about the government coming down on them because they could use satire or humor or love or passion or any of those to express their ideas. And then I believe, as in today's standards, what we believe theater is, or what I believe theater is today in today's standards, is that we have entertainment ways that we can go into theaters and escape society's daily grind in ways that we can just let our
So
mind.
I won't play the rest of it, but I was so stunned because, again, this was a student who was extremely shy, and he all volunteered, and used a webcam in the library on his Mac to record that. So that was just a phenomenal kind of offshoot of all of this. I had another young lady in there who also did voice.
What a theater means to me is a venue where actors come together, artists come together in order to express their artistic values or their work or their art. And a theater that I like attending or that I can think of is the Boston Opera House, which actually is a theater that I attended um, with my cousin and watched The Color Purple. And that experience was actually a very good experience. It was dramatic. It was realistic. It
So again, what this fostered then in class was that students all of a sudden would go up to the young lady and say, "Wow, you've been to Boston and you watched The Color Purple live," and they would start talking about it. And the other young man, the one that went to Red Rocks in Colorado, and so and they would comment. I would see them on break talking about their comments on the voice thread. So I just found that I had such just such an appreciation for using this tool, and just had delightful surprises really with everything every time I've used it, uh, and just unexpected rewards is all I can say. Totally unexpected rewards. um, I switched here, kind of moving along here. These are voice threads that my American literature class, I gave them an option. And actually 2 quarters ago, I gave a group of students the option. They had to do a significant author project. And that was my first kind of venture into saying, well, instead of the traditional significant author project, which is a research paper, that they would stand up in front of the class and read to the class. I said, how would you like to be able to create a voice thread in lieu of that paper? And the first time I offered that, I only had, I think, about 5 or 6 out of 15 or 16 students that did that. But those 5 or 6 students then told other students how much fun it was. And so the next time I offered the option, it was an option, I had actually ended up with 14 out of 16 choosing that option last quarter. And so I had to teach all of, well, luckily we have the tutorials on VoiceThread, because I'm teaching literature, not how to do a voice thread. But I ended up having them watch the tutorials, and we do have rooms that they can use here, and headsets with microphones and computers, so that they could bring their laptop if they had it, or if not, we have a computer, but we have headsets. And so they ended up doing these presentations, and again, it just went way beyond my expectations. I would like to show you. I'm not going to play them, but I do just really want to show you some of the visuals. I have a rubric that I created that I give the students ahead of time so they know, and this counts as their final exam. And I do require, though, that everyone in the class, whether or not you make a voice thread, that you do comment on the student threads. Now, they just have to respond once. I count it as a journal entry. And but they respond on every single thread that's created by the deadline. And so I realized that the students get really busy, and so I had to give a deadline for when this work is due so that we have time to play. We play them in class, and then the students comment on them outside of class. But they can pick any. I let them have free reign. I said any American author that you feel has had an impact on American literature. And so some of them, no, they wouldn't be maybe in my literature book, like Dan Brown, had Anne Rice, Michael Crichton, but the students did, and Tom Clancy, but they did very insightful work on why they felt that this was a significant American author. And so they used humor. We had Amy Tan's The Joy Luck Club. We had two students actually do Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye, Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, John Steinbeck, Christopher Paul Curtis, S.E. Hinton, because they felt that author impacted young people's literature. So like I said, it has just been a very surprising journey with VoiceThread. This one, just show you real quickly so we can go through. But they start out giving a little giving a little bio about the author, and I tell them that it's very important that they not that the slides are timed. Basically, they talk perhaps 2 minutes per slide. So he gave the background of Dan Brown. And then they go into his analysis and using terms that we were familiar with, that all the students are familiar with, the setting, the protagonist, antagonist, but what this means and why it was important in this novel that he chose, Angels and Demons, and the symbols and what they meant in the book, the symbolism in the novel. And then he talked about his other books and the use of theme and symbolism. And then they have to give a reference slide. And that is my requirement because this is in lieu of a reference paper or a research project. So the presentations are about 10 minutes long, each presentation. And then the students like I said, they go through and they comment on them, and then they're more familiar with the voice, so they tend to.
Dan Brown is named one of the 2005 top 100 most influential people in the world. He's the author of such great works as Digital Fortress, Deception Point, and is best known for the Robert Langdon series consisting of Angels and Demons, The Da Vinci Code, and The Lost Symbol. Brown was born in 1964 in Exeter, New Hampshire, to a mathematics professor and a professional musician. He attended Amherst College and Phillips Exeter Academy, where he later taught English until retiring to writing.
Okay, so that was my 5-minute warning from Michelle, so I will be wrapping up. But I did want you to experiment with VoiceThread, and as you can see, I use it for a variety of teaching tools, and I just believe that if you introduce it to students and you want to have the students try it out, and you're enthused about it, I think then they'll be enthused about it. And I hope that if any of you have questions, I look forward to helping you answer some of those.
Vicki, why don't you go ahead and leave the VoiceThread panel up on the page just in case we get any more questions. That way,
Oh, okay. Okay,
we
like
can,
that. Okay.
yeah, it'll be
All
more
right.
accessible for you to
Okay.
share. That was fabulous. And I just wanted to contribute that I recently, this past semester, required my students to create a voice thread for our final culminating project in my history of photography class. And before that, I had always made it an option. And this was the first time I required it as their method of creating the project. And their project was to go out and identify a contemporary practicing photographer. It's a history of photography class, it's a community college class. And that photographer can live anywhere in the world, but it has to be a practicing art photographer and have criteria for that. And they have to interview the person and create a voice thread about their work. And that requires them to get permission to use their images in the voice thread. And my criteria is just to share the voice thread privately with our group. There are some students who chose to share it more publicly with permission from the photographer. I had one student who's the photographer who she showcased in her work was so excited about the product that she put together that he asked her permission to embed the voice thread on his own website. And
Oh,
so
that's
that
wonderful.
was something that she left the class with, just kind of feeling so elated and so proud of this product that she had created, not only because what she had learned through the process, but because she felt like her work had been so valued. And so I take a lot, many steps back, and I think I compare that experience to writing a paper, and giving it, submitting it to the professor for comments and so forth. So I think there's lots of different levels that we should be kind of evaluating the use of new media tools for student assessments like this. And you've pointed out some fabulous ones, and I thank you for being so willing to share. You've had many accolades here that have come in the questions. A lot of people are commenting on what a great teacher you are. There were some questions about copyright that I'd like to address. Using copyright within VoiceThread is not something that VoiceThread manages. That's something that we need to be managing as educators, and using copyright in a digital society is a really difficult thing when we're talking about images. So that is certainly something to address, and to encourage. We should be pointing our students towards resources where they can locate images that do have Creative Commons licenses with them that are usable for purposes like this, without violating copyright. VoiceThread actually has an integration with Flickr. So when you're in there creating a voice thread, or if your students are, and let's say they want an image for a particular slide, they could actually click on the media sources button that you'd see when you're creating a voice thread, and then click on Flickr, and they can search for images that have Creative Commons licenses, and they'll pull them right over. It'll pull right over from Flickr and include a link to the image, which covers the attribution part of the licensing. So that's one way that helps a little bit within the VoiceThread creation process. But for the most part, that's something that we need to be covering as educators. And I have found that myself as an art historian, and as I talk to other educators, we're really kind of generally more comfortable with dealing with that on a textual level than on a visual level. So that's a really good question. And I hope that addresses that a little bit. Do you want to show how you, the tagging element, Vicki? Is that something you
Oh,
want to address?
okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's, for example, oh, it's under my edit. There we go. I was like, okay, where is this? All right. So, I'm trying to.
It's actually right there under the
Right,
title.
yeah, there we go. Okay, so there are all my tags. Now oh, something that I didn't mention was the ones that I create. You'll see my name and it's all run together there. Vicki Phillips Instructional English. Now the reason we tag them like that, everything I create that is for writing or grammar, we actually have a shortcut to VoiceThread, that I put, well, I didn't put, but that we put here on our library and learning center computers, so that when the students click on that shortcut icon, it goes right to the ones I've tagged Vicki Phillips Instructional English. It goes right to my created voice threads, so that they don't have to go to VoiceThread and then look through all of them and under browse. So if I tag them, and I do give the students that tag as well, but that enables me to be able to have a shortcut on the computer desktop that basically they just click on it and it opens up just to those 11 created writing voice threads. And then, like the ones I showed from that class, we tagged all those AML 3041. And that way everything, now if someone else creates a voice thread, what I found out, because I tagged some others, LIT 2000, and apparently there are a couple of LIT 2000 classes. so, so some other literature voice threads popped up in my LIT 2000. So I'm going to have to tweak my tags a little bit, I think.
Just to review, the reason Vicki is using the tagging feature to point her students to them is because she's sharing them publicly, and so she wants her students to be able to have a real easy way to find them through the public browse feature of VoiceThread.
Right.
So when you create a VoiceThread and you elect to put it on browse, that's how you make it public. So
Exactly.
browse is the equivalent of public on VoiceThread. Now, with that said, as I mentioned earlier, another way of doing that is to set up a VoiceThread group. And when you create a new group, you could call a group your class name, like, English or whatever it was, AML 3041.
Right.
And that could be the group name. And then what VoiceThread does is it generates a link. And so you take that link and, for example, you could put it, if you teach with a course management system, put it in your CMS. Your students come in who are in that class, click on the link, and then they automatically become members of that group. And so essentially all they have to do is go to their VoiceThread page, and then over on the left-hand side, just like you see it on Vicky's page here, they would see that group appear, click on the name of the group, and they'd have access to all the voice threads that you've shared with them. By the way, we haven't talked about this, but VoiceThread's mobile app is also connected to that. So if your students, don't have access to a computer with a microphone, can't get to the library into one of those great recording rooms, but let's say they have an iPhone or they have an iPad, then they can actually, access the voice threads through that device, that mobile device, and also leave voice and video comments through that mobile device, and even doodle with it also. So that's a really nice feature, and it's another reason why I like the group so much, because it makes them very accessible to the students, and it also adds the privacy element.
Right.
Okay, so I don't want to lose track of any more questions here. Okay, so Joe has asked a question here. Are these voice threads all group projects by more than one student? If so, are students invited to contribute to whichever book or voice thread they choose? Are the voice threads created by individual students, or are they group projects?
Oh no, these are all individuals.
Okay.
Each student is required to create their own project. They can write their own paper or they create their own voice thread. And they turn in the script as part of the required writing portion. There's also a writing portion that's part of the course objectives. So the script I count as part of the overall word count for the quarter, because they have other papers that they do. And I think that I wanted to make that clear. This isn't in lieu of writing. They still write papers during the class, but there was a final paper, and so this is just in lieu of the final significant author paper.
Good. So just a little point of clarification there. So
Yeah,
they're actually not group projects. And I want to respond to Julio's question. How can you track students with just first name labels? And I can address that one. First of all, don't let them sign up with just first names. And if they do, you really do need to instruct them to adjust their identity so they can change that. I require all my students to sign up with I advise them to sign up with a first name and last initial. And that way, if I do, for example, ask permission to share their voice thread, their full name isn't being shared, it's just their first and last initial. Some students use their whole name, that's up to them. But I include that as kind of part of my instructions for when they join the group, just to basically sign up with a first name and last initial. Now, if you're fortunate enough to be part of an institution that has a site-wide license to VoiceThread, then you can actually reach the higher level integration levels with VoiceThread, where VoiceThread could integrate with your student services software, and you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So, that's something most of us can aspire to.
Um, and I think also on mine, I, I think that it was on that slide, but anyway, they do have a title slide, and usually that's where the student types the title of the author they're presenting, and then they also put in their name, like Dan Brown, and then the name of the person, of the student, uh, on there. And generally, I've noticed that with the VoiceThread, though, when you click on the comment, I only ever see first names, and I wasn't sure about that, why it doesn't show the first and the last name.
It's how they sign up. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands go up, so I'm going to answer Debbie's question. She's asking, can you add video clips within a VoiceThread like a YouTube clip? Yes and no. Let me address that question in a complex way. VoiceThread is a media holder. It holds a variety of different types of media, and so you can definitely upload video clips into a VoiceThread. There are parameters that you need to respect with regards to the size of the file. If you have a higher ed educator account, I believe the limit on that file size is 100 megabytes. So it's a pretty big file size, but that can come into play if you're uploading a video clip. But it's not integrated with YouTube. So in other words, you can't just link out to YouTube. It doesn't work that way. You need to basically have that video file saved to your computer's hard drive and upload it that way. And it's really important to also be thoughtful and mindful about copyright when you're dealing with using reuse of video as well. Of course, within copyright, we do have something called the Fair Use Clause, which exists for educators, and we all need to be very familiar with the pillars around fair use. So with that said, that's something that I always advocate educators to become aware of and evaluate how you're using copyrighted content and understand whether or not you feel comfortable with it being a fair use, So that addresses that question, I hope, in a way that helps a little bit. I'll give you one more tip about video. I have found some great video clips on Vimeo.com. If you go to Vimeo, there's a way that you can actually search within their advanced search area for downloadable videos. And so those are videos that have been uploaded and shared with a Creative Commons license, and you have the permission to download them, as long as you just cite within your VoiceThread where you got it from or who created it. And so that's a resource that I've been looking to actually more than VoiceThread for videos that I can reuse. Okay, well, we are about out of time here, so I would like to thank you, Vicki, for just being so gracious with sharing all of your fabulous approaches to teaching. You are really a great teacher, and I think we all agree with that. So it's really nice to sit back and see everyone learn something from what you've done with your students. And thank you. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Michelle, for asking me. I really enjoyed this, and and everyone out there, you have my email address. Please don't hesitate to email. I'm happy to share anything that I've created. I'm really thrilled, actually, when someone asks to share. And I'll be happy to discuss anything, rubrics, how I created the rubrics, or anything else.
Great. That's fabulous. And we hope that you come back soon and continue to learn with us. Have a great weekend, everybody.